I think it all comes back to having self-confidence and self-worth. Just like Lacey says, that is the foundation of everything. It's all going to come together and your life is going to work out. I'm rooting for you.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Hi, TBM community. Coach Heather here. I'm here to give you all a tip that I've been using on myself as well as my clients. My clients usually will tell me I'm manifesting success, or I'm manifesting balance, or I'm manifesting ease. And I always ask them, as well as myself, can you define that? Those words are very broad, and what that means to you versus what that means to me could be very different. It's important for us to really know the breakdown of what we're asking for. The overarching word of success or ease or balance or whatever it may be is helpful to start the clarity. But what I really want you to do is dig into it. What exactly does that mean? Could success mean that you slept 8 hours? Could success mean that you made a really great meal? Could success mean that you rested when typically you would go? Could balance mean that you are trying to find a flow in between rest and hustle? Could ease mean just not forcing? Could ease be ease in work, but also ease in working out? Could ease also be around your body and the way that you treat it? I want you to take some time to define these overarching words. Once you define it, you can see, do I actually have it right now? Why don't I have it? Is this something I've ever experienced before? Do I need expanders? What are my limiting beliefs around having this now that I know exactly what the definition is to me personally? It's been really helpful for myself as well as my clients. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to go into it with more detail. And don't forget, we're having a coaching sale right now. All caps, Summer 100 for $100 off a coaching session with either one of the coaches.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. We have another incredible process for you today, and we have on Brianca. Brianca has manifested a move to California, which is what she dreamed of living back in for so long, various partnerships, various aligned employment opportunities. She won $3,000 of solid gold jewelry on her 30th birthday, free iPhone 11, free Apple Watch series, and sleep tracker that she received after completing the Missing Piece workshop, and numerous other secondhand treasures. But what really stood out to us about Brianca's story is, one, she is in process on two of her really big manifestations. One is which purchasing her own home, and her next career path, which is even more aligned to her authentic self. Every career she's manifested thus far have taught her new lessons and made her see where she may have been playing small or trying to appease other people by taking certain really shiny roles. And she's learned to delegate and detox and say no to those big tests and getting more and more aligned with her career path. But one of the questions we get from you guys a lot is like, what about someone who's in process? What is their mindset like? How are they acting? What are they doing? How are they staying grounded? And Brianca really goes into the magic dark, essentially, that she's in right now, that quiet phase, and how she's still able to manifest little things, showing her she's on her way and how she is really feeling all of her emotions while being in this phase. The other thing that really stood out to us about Brianca's story is how much she has worked through major blocks in her life since starting this work 5 years ago. So some of the themes that she's tackled in such a big way is codependency, enmeshment, low self-worth, emotional dysregulation, lack mentality, generational trauma, sexual identity confusion, multiple career failures, struggle with self-image, emotional overwhelm, complete loss of identity, major depression, extreme fatigue, religious trauma, racial trauma, learning to love those who ideation I do not agree with, setting and maintaining boundaries, and grieving the loss of her former self and the loss of her father. So these are topics and themes that are going to be rooted down and may pop up throughout, all of our lives in some way, shape, or form, at least some of these elements. And I think what's so beautiful is that she really decided to take a dedicated look at it and go to the next level of clearing these things. You'll hear her say in the episode how she feels like a completely different person than when she was when she started this work. And I think that's such a testament of her own dedication to her self-care and of the work. The other thing I think is really fascinating is we get a lot of questions about this work and how to navigate it being neurodivergent. And she recently discovered in the past few years that she was diagnosed on the spectrum with both ADHD and autism. And she really pulls back any of the shame around it, ways that she's learned to cope through it, and any tips that she gives on moving through the deep imaginings and sort of making the work your own, because she doesn't see visuals in the same way, but the work has still been so effective for her. I know you guys are going to love this episode. She has so much insight to share, and I love how sweet and resilient and bubbly her energy is. So you guys are going to really love this one. I just want to give one trigger warning before we jump in. Brianca shares about her personal journey facing racism and her mom's journey facing racism, and shares in detail some of the horrific things that she's had to go through. So for any of our BIPOC members or listeners or anyone in the community that thinks that that might be a bit too triggering to listen to, feel free to skip over the section. Timestamp 13 minutes to 17 minutes and 55 seconds. And stay tuned for a little mini manifestation story in the outro. Enjoy the episode. Today we have an incredible process guest, Brianca. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Jessica. Doing so great and happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. So we always jump in with sun, moon, and rising, and we are recording today on a full moon. So it makes sense that we learn what yours is.
Of course. So I am a Cancer sun, Capricorn rising, and a Leo moon.
Oh, Leo moon. It's your season.
It certainly is. And just got out of Cancer season 2. So I have like back-to-back excitement.
Yes. How do you feel like those different elements present for you?
I would say every year around this time is kind of when my magic happens. I guess what they call like the Lionsgate portal is usually the time of year when my big manifestations come in. So this is really like special time for me and I love it.
Wow. It's so cool that we're also like recording in that time frame too.
Yes, it all makes perfect sense.
So, Kismet. Okay, cool. So, what is your cultural background and upbringing, and how did that inform who you are today?
So I am African American and Irish. My mom is mostly all African American. It's really interesting. We all took a DNA test, and my grandparents have like a whole mix of European and Nordic cultures mixed in there somehow. And
Whoa.
I know it's so cool. And then my father's mom was full Irish, and then his father was Black and European as well. But it's really interesting because both of my parents, the countries in Africa and stuff that they are from, are the same exact ones. So I don't know, it's all weird, but it's really cool.
So, both lineages have family that trace back to the same countries in Africa on both sides.
Hmm.
I think that's so cool to see. Whoa, they lived in this region or there's family in this area, and just getting to trace it back and, I don't know, appreciate your heritage.
I agree. And you learn a lot of really cool things. Like I found out that I guess my great 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 grandparents left Ireland because of the potato famine. So that's how they ended up in the US. And then, of course, my, African family ended up in the US under less happy. I mean, both of them were kind of like awful
Ugh.
places that ended up in the United
Yeah.
States. But I think uncovering a lot of, they say that our trauma is stored in our body. Like I think that a lot of my fears and things come from that because my family's just had to like fight to survive, and that comes into my life a lot as well.
100%. Yeah, one of the things that you had mentioned on your submission form was healing generational trauma. So what sort of, I mean, not to dive in deep already here,
Let's get
but
into it.
what sort of things have you noticed, and are you able to sort of like work through, or even just like take a look at even deeper to know, wow, okay, they were really in a place of just complete survival mode because they needed to be, and they were just in such a hardship. What somatically in the body has maybe like translated, or what stuff can I look at to heal?
So starting with my mom's side of the family, it's interesting because, a lot of African American families have said in my generation, like I'm the first one to go to college, all that stuff. My family on my mom's side is not like that at all. Both of my grandparents went to college. My parents went to college. My brother went to college. I'm the only one who didn't go to college. Yeah, and I think my great aunt was maybe like the first Black person to go to USC. And so
Wow.
still my grandfather was pretty high up in the military. He worked with missiles and really cool stuff with, I want to say, like NASA, and just in the early days of missile launches and stuff. And he had a really cool job, worked with the NAACP, got to travel around the world. My grandparents are very well traveled. My mom was born in England. Her siblings were born in Great Britain and Germany due to the military. So just a really cool experience. But even though they were in there in the 60s doing groundbreaking things, they still weren't allowed to share water fountains with white
Mm.
people. Even though my grandfather was pretty high up in the military, when they traveled, if they were in the South, they weren't allowed to stay in hotels. They had to sleep in their car.
Wow.
So, when people talk about like racism was so long ago, we should stop talking about it and worrying about it. Like it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, completely agree. And so, even understanding, okay, seeing sort of this incredible success and accomplishment of your family, but then knowing, oh, that must have really taken a toll on them mentally, emotionally, spiritually to have lived through that and moved through that.
Exactly. And then trickling on down to my mom. So I think we all know the story of Ruby Bridges, that little girl who was like the first African American to go to an integrated school, and like people were awful to her. My mom was that situation as well. So when they integrated, there was only like 5 African American kids at her high school, and she has a lot of trauma. They would throw acid into the pool when she tried to go into the pool. People would follow her home and spit on her and just do these awful things. And
Oh my
a
God.
lot of that has informed the way that she lives, and she's very fearful of everything, and she tries to overprotect me because she's so afraid that things like that could happen to me. Although I'm so grateful now we live in a time where it's not so bad, and I've grown up and lived in California most of my life, and so it hasn't been too crazy. But there has been times where people have called us monkeys or said we don't belong here. Or when I was growing up, something that was really common, like in high school, if I was dating someone, their parents would always say things like, "Oh, when did you get jungle fever?" Or "Are you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?" And so that was really hurtful to me. And people still, I mean, in 2022 will say, "Oh, wow, you're pretty for being African American," or "You're smart for being African American," or "You only got that job because of affirmative action." And it's just like, no, I got the job because I work really hard.
How do you process that? Because I know there are other people in the community that are facing at different levels from different backgrounds that are facing racism, that are facing, this like history of oppression. How do you work to not internalize those messages and to become resilient in the face of that? I mean, even listening to your mom's story, my heart completely breaks for her. Like, that's so scary and fearful. It makes so much sense why she would have that fear. And then also putting that on you because she's trying to protect you at all costs. So it's like, how do you begin to pull that apart, separate it, and ground into safety now, even when the world isn't still 100% feeling safe?
I think it all comes back to having self-confidence and self-worth. Just like Lacey says, that is the foundation of everything. Something that happened to me was I always wanted to be a hairdresser. That was one of the things that I felt like was a viable career that I could do. But my mom would tell me things like, white people aren't going to want you to touch their hair. And there's just like a lot of little nuances along my journey that were like, you're not going to be accepted. And you know what? A lot of times I wasn't. So all I have to do is work on me. That's the only thing I have control on. So when I go into those situations, I just have to say, I have the power here and I can affirm my place in the room because I deserve this.
Yeah, it's like such a level of resilience because it's like you're unblocking sort of the shame and fear that your mom sort of is trying to protect you from. But then if you go in the real world and you're actually facing those situations that she was trying to protect you from, it's like you can see how someone very easily would be like, okay, that must be the truth,
Yes.
or I must take on shame or fear or whatever. Okay, great. But what you're saying is, go out there and know, okay, even if my mom said it, even if in that situation it was true, I am still worthy. I have the power here. If they don't like me, like that's a problem on their end. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to think of myself differently.
Absolutely.
Love, love, love that. There were so many cool, amazing blocks that you wrote down that you were working through discovering this work. Codependence, enmeshment, low self-worth, emotional dysregulation, lack mentality, sexual identity confusion, multiple careers. Talk about all the stuff and also what led you to TBM to start exploring some of this stuff.
So around the time that I was working through TBM, I was living in Austin, Texas. I was far away from my family for the first time, and I was engaged to someone who I still love deeply to this day, but I think we had more of a best friendship than a romantic forever partner sort of a thing. So I was in a job that I didn't like. I was kind of losing my identity in every way possible. So, like I've always been a big family person. My dad was an hour away, so not far away, but not super close. But then the rest of my family was in California, super far away. I could only see them like a couple times a year. And then I was just like not making as much money as I knew that I was worth. And my whole life, I had just worked so, so hard. I was working like 2 jobs to live the life that I wanted to. And my body was just like, I can't do this anymore. When I was younger, I was, super athletic. I was a cheerleader, a dancer. I was gymnast too. And then 70 pounds of inflammation just like hit my body. So I wasn't used to that. Like I wasn't used to the way that I looked. I wasn't used to feeling sluggish and tired and awful all the time. And it's just like everything around me is falling apart. I don't know what to do. So then I started listening to podcasts at work because that was kind of the only thing that felt like could get me through the day. And then I heard Lacey's story on the Luke Story podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is incredible. So that's kind of where it all started. And so I just started working piece by piece on little things that were coming up. And it's just led me on this incredible journey. And I've gotten to work through all of these blocks. And I am 100% a completely different person than when I started.
Okay, yeah. So paint this picture. So you're in Texas, it's really like everything's rock bottoming out. Your health is rock bottoming out, your job is rock bottoming out, your relationship, like everything is like, girl, we are not in the right path. Let's take a like, let's move out of here. This is not for us. Like we need to really double down. How did you start to reconnect with your authentic self? Because I think that's a question is people are like, who am I? What is my purpose? Like, what am I supposed to, okay, I know this isn't for me, but what is for me? Where do I even begin? How did you know when the true you started coming through? What were hints?
To be honest, I think that wasn't until like 2 months ago. But what you have to start doing is following the pings. Like, even if it's not the right thing, quote unquote, every decision that you make is never wrong. It is leading you exactly to the next place you have to go. So when I left California, moved to Austin, I went to beauty school because that's what I always wanted to do, at least I thought. So I made it through school, got a job as a hairstylist, I think for maybe like 6 months. And I was like, oh God, this isn't for me. Not necessarily because I didn't like hairstyling, but because there's so much that goes in with it that you don't realize. And I am an extremely sensitive person just in all manners. And so you have to like talk to people. You're somebody's therapist. You have to come up with color formulas. You're like a chemist. You are standing on your feet all day long. My body was like, girl, we're not doing this. So, I got through all of that and then I had to redirect. And where I was living at the time was a big like university health system. So I got a job there. Just, kept working my way up through different job titles so that I can make more money, and then figured out this isn't for me. So then, I just have to every couple years just keep redirecting and trying something out and being like, oof, this doesn't feel good. Let me try this. And you just got to keep going until you finally realize this is starting to make sense. I understand why the universe had me do this.
I think that's such a good insight and tip because people try to once they realize they're not in like maybe the aligned path, they're like, cool, then I have to move on the aligned path. Otherwise, I'm going to wind up here again. And it doesn't really go like that because once you've hit this isn't for me, your sort of threshold of knowing what isn't for you is going to be lower, so you're able to recognize it sooner. So just like you were saying with the hairstyling, maybe if you hadn't already known, okay, this isn't for me, I got to make a change, maybe you would have been there for a lot longer. But because you already had that experience, you're building the trust muscle of like, wait, okay, this doesn't feel right. Now we can pivot. And you're learning the lessons from that job for the next one. I mean, even reading through your like money backstory, you started at $9 an hour, then to 18, then to 35, kept going up and up and up. And maybe you settled for jobs, but you were continuing to like expand. It's like your bridge expanders along the way or your bridge tests. It's like, okay, I did settle in some ways, but I am moving up step by step.
Exactly. And sometimes that even switches. I was making more and more money, but getting less and less close to what I actually wanted to do. So there was a point in time where I had to pivot and say, okay, I have to accept a job that's way less money than what I was making before, but it's starting to feel more aligned.
Ooh, okay. Talk about that. What do you think was coming up that you wanted the higher, like what did the high paying job represent to you?
I think it was taking on a shadow that I didn't feel worthy because I didn't go to college like everyone else. I was working for UC San Francisco at one of the top 5 medical schools in the whole world. And so it was a really, I don't want to say high profile, but it's an important job. And I think that gave me a little bit of sense of self-worth. But then my body turned against me completely. My brain fog got so bad that I could barely speak or form sentences. I could make it to work, but after that, I was a potato. Like I couldn't move, I couldn't recognize myself. I just had enough energy to get to work. And after that, nothing. I lost all my friends. I barely had energy to talk to my family. It was awful.
So it's really separating that piece of like, okay, what part of this is for validation? And that makes so much sense, right? Because a part of you was like, I'm feeling pretty insecure about not going to college. What better way to overcome that than to work for a really established, institution and get paid really well there? Well, I'm valid now, right? And your body's like, you were always valid. You were always worthy. That never changed. You're just pursuing a job for, based out of your shadow or based out of your ego, etc.
Exactly. Just money, and so that my mom could brag to her friends, essentially. And so around this time is when you need to figure out your kind of core values. So I figured out that mine were kind of luxury and leisure kind of go hand in hand as one, pleasure being the second, health the third, and sustainability the fourth. So after I decided to leave the job at UCSF, I kept getting pings to quit the job without finding another job first. So I went ahead and did that, and I had the intention of going to school to be a psychologist because, I'm so deep in the Lacey work. I've read like all of the books that she's recommended. Like I'm looking at the shelf right now. I have the Hendricks and, all the psychology books.
Yes.
I could talk about this back to front. So then I start going to school and just having such a hard time turning in papers and doing things. And I'm not even working, and I'm just crying every day because even though I know and understand the material, I'm getting A pluses on all of the tests. We have to turn in a bunch of term papers and cite all the things, and I just couldn't do it. And so I would just cry and cry, like, what is wrong with me? But in doing that, I figured out that I have very strong symptoms of ADHD and autism, and going to school sometimes is just a struggle for people that have those symptoms. So then that gave me a little bit of relief because I was like, oh my gosh, at least it's not me. It's just the way that my brain is wired right now. And so I went ahead and dropped out of school and kept applying for jobs, but just wasn't getting any. What that did, though, was give me the space and time to rest my nervous system because all I've known my whole life was like, go, 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 work harder, do it better, be the best. I just couldn't keep going on that way. And so I was lucky enough to kind of have a year off, but because I was making so much money at UCSF, I had a really good FU fund. And so I kind of just lived off of that. And then when it started to dwindle, there would be a couple of checks that would come in the mail like, oh, your insurance had overcharged you. Here's $200. And I know that that's not typical. I don't want people to get the impression that that's something that happens all the time, but it happened for me. Then my brother and I had been discussing moving to LA, and that is the only through line that's been through my whole life that I've actually known since I was like, I would say 6. I've wanted to move back to LA. That was where I was born. And so I'm like, yes, finally have my opportunity. I get to go with my brother and not be by myself. And my little brother's my best friend. We do everything together. So he moved to Pasadena to go to the art center, grad school. And then I ended up getting a job at Viking Cruise Line because it's a luxury cruise line where people get to, have leisure and it's very pleasurable. So I'm like, hey, this might be
checking
a cool.
The boxes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that this might work for me. So I just get a job in regular customer service. I didn't even finish training yet. and I applied for a promotion for sales and ended up getting it. So I was working that for about a month, and then my dad passed away, and kind of like my whole world crashed. I am so loved by my family. Like, that is the one thing that I am so grateful for. No matter, the little things that my parents did trying to protect me that were hard on me, they only did it out of love. They loved me so much. But I kind of felt like my dad was my anchor in unconditional love. I'd be like, oh, I want to do like this. And he would say, oh, I believe in you. You should do it. And then on the other hand, my mom loves me so much too, and I know it. But, her fear comes up and she goes, oh, you shouldn't do this because of this.
Yep.
You need to be weary of this and this and this and this. Yeah, so my unconditional anchor was kind of gone, and that was just so hard for me and couldn't take it anymore. So I quit my job because I just wasn't functioning well. I went to the doctor and I had to get prescribed medication to just wake up in the morning because I just couldn't do it. That was about June of this year. I want to say I quit my job, and it's been so hard. Every day has been challenging, but so worth it. I'm learning more and more about myself, and kind of the only thing that has helped me, I guess, feel okay in my body again has been I've been taking aerial classes.
Ooh, fun.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. It has just been the best thing in the whole world, and I just feel okay with myself and my body again for the first time, and so it's been really good.
Okay, there's so many parts of that second half of the story I want to pull apart. So I guess one theme that I am noticing is you have a really strong trust muscle of when something isn't for you, and you're able to leave without overthinking or sticking around too long. When you knew that one job wasn't aligned, you're like, you know what? Okay, not for me. Okay, I need to leave this job because my body needs a rest, and being able to take a year off and give your body exactly that and live off your FU fund. You know what I mean? And then with the Viking Cruise Line, you even mentioned in your submission, but that part of you was trying to fulfill that extrovert piece of you.
That is exactly it. That is exactly it.
When you're really the introvert and you're like, shit, okay, that one's not aligned either. And it's so beautiful because it's like in the journey, you are manifesting some incredible jobs, incredible roles, getting closer to alignment, checking off your authentic code, like everything's moving in the right direction. But in those steps, you are also finding like, shit, well, was that for validation? Was that for ego? Was that for shadow? Where was I still trying to prove myself? You're deeply diving in and really being honest with yourself and taking action quickly to know, okay, this is not right for me. Or, you know what? I am extremely sensitive and I need space. Like I just had a huge, huge heartbreak and loss in my life. I'm not going to just show up like everything's good. I need time to sit with that, to process that, to really wrap my head around that. And I love how much you love yourself and honor your needs in that. I think it's so beautiful.
Thank you. I really like the way you articulated that. You made that very succinct. Yes. Yes to everything you said.
And the other piece is when you were diagnosed or you discovered that you had ADHD and autism, how did that bring, I guess, like clarity to maybe some ways? I think, I want to do a whole episode on ADHD because I think it's so interesting, and also being on the spectrum and all of that. There's so much to unpack and learn about there, but schooling systems are not set up for people who are neurodivergent, and there can be a lot of shame that can come along with it. And so it's understanding like, oh, I'm not bad at school. My brain just works differently. My intelligence is there. It's just I need a different format, and the way that standard school is not built for that. So did that give you peace of mind to be like, oh, okay, cool. Now I feel seen by this. And then also, did you find pieces where you're like, okay, I need to do this different because that's better for me?
Yes, you are absolutely right. When I was young, I never had to work very hard at school. And it's interesting too because there's different forms of ADHD, and I don't have a hard time sitting still and listening at all. That's not the type of ADHD I have. Mine is more cognitive in like memories. When you notice when I'm speaking, I have to like stop and think because my brain has so many thoughts at the same times that it gets jumbly by the time it comes out to my mouth. It's taught me the ability to slow down because my symptoms are worse when I'm trying to rush through something. If I have the space to sit and think before I open my mouth or make the next move, it comes out a lot smoother. Like in elementary and junior high and high school, the format wasn't that bad for me because I'm really good at sitting and listening and absorbing information. But on a social aspect, it was where it was really hard because I could tell that I was different, but I didn't know why. And also, the way that most people think about autism is only how it's been studied in white males, not in women. Women show up very differently. It's kind of funny too because my last like real boyfriend was a forensic psychologist, and he said to me one day, "I think you're autistic." And I was like, "What are you even talking about?" And it was funny because I worked in a high school for 5 or 6 years, like a long time, working with kids with autism. And I was like, I do not have any of these symptoms. But it was because they were mostly nonverbal and more severe. But I just kind of live on the spectrum somewhere. But it was mostly just social aspects. Like I didn't talk that much when I was younger. But it was because I was afraid of when things come out of my mouth, they don't make sense to other people because it makes sense in my head. But yeah, now getting to the higher educational system, it's a mess. I can't do it. I can't work and go to school at the same time. Just really hard.
I mean, this is so interesting and profound too, because I think it gives expansion to anyone who may have a diagnosis similar and feel like, wait, but I don't resonate with what you see, like maybe on TV or what the stereotypical version of ADHD or autism is. What does that mean? And I think you're really giving voice to there is such a spectrum in both cases, and they can present so differently, and just validating your own experience is so important.
Yes, and even having to fight for your care. I started going to the doctor, I want to say around like 25, and was gaslit over and over and over and over. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing coming up on this. I'm like, my body is physically shutting down. There is something wrong with me. Someone please help me. And so that's kind of where I just had to start doing my own research. And luckily, I'm really good at deciphering information. Like I can read a medical journal or a study and be able to articulate perfectly like what the study said. And so that's kind of how I healed myself, just reading. And it's awesome too because now I get to listen to podcasts that have the top doctors in the whole world, and then I go to my doctor and I'm like, "Hey, this is what's up." And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, I just listened to this person tell me." And it's hard too because the shadow shows up a lot in that. I have a big shadow around being a know-it-all because I just absorb information so easily. And so when I regurgitate that to people, they find it annoying. And so that's something that's really hard for me.
I mean, that makes so much sense why you would have that shadow too, because if you're saying you have so many thoughts in your head at one time and you're trying to distill that down to someone else, you could be having that layer of like, uh-oh, are they gonna understand what I'm saying? It's almost like your breadth of knowledge is so beyond even what maybe the doctor knows for him, not to invalidate the doctor, but they're kind of like taken aback, like, wait, how does she know all this? Or like, I don't even know this. How could that be possible? So it's interesting how the world mirrors us back so we can double down and be like, nope, I do know. I don't need you to validate that. I read it. I believe it. Thanks.
Yes, exactly. But then it's also challenging because, like I was telling you, there was right when my dad passed away, most of the time I could function enough that it's okay. But like when my dad died, I just couldn't do anything. And so I went to my PCP and was like, I think that I need Adderall. I just need help. I don't want it for very long. I just need for a couple months to get help. And she made it so hard. And she treated me like I was a drug dealer. She's like, well, you're going to have to get drug tested and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't care. Just help
Whoa.
me. And then she would only give me 5 milligrams, which is the lowest possible you could get. And I'm like, lady, this isn't helping me. And then so I demanded to see a real psychiatrist. And he validated me so much. I'm so grateful for him.
See, another great example of you not settling for what doesn't feel right and demanding something that's in your worth. Your trust muscle in that is so strong and so awesome to see.
Thank you.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest, to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
What are some of the ways, moving into like inner child land now, what are some of the ways that you have reparented your inner child through some of these things? Like when you are being tested and trying to navigate, does this feel right for me? Does it not? Or, if you're being gaslit at the doctor, like if you went back to a DI, what do you typically go to? And then how do you work on reparenting your inner child?
So what I will usually do is more reassurance, I would say. Because for me, a lot of it's interconnected. The reason why I have a shadow is because of something that happened in my childhood. I never see the things that, Lacey's saying in the DI. And I just want to give people assurance of that. Just because maybe you fall asleep or you can't follow exactly what's happening, the magic is still working in your brain. Don't give up on yourself. And going back to that, a lot of times I don't actually see the childhood memory that triggered it. Sometimes I'll know and sometimes I don't. But I mean, it still ends up getting healed. But I'll just, in the DI, imagine either my real parents or the magnetic parents, and I'll just have them reassure me and hug me, because that's how I like to get my love, is by hugs, and just say, it is okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You'll get through this. And that always gives me a lot of hope.
I love that you gave licensing to doing the DIs a bit different, because that's a question we get a lot too, especially for people who have a lot of thoughts. Like if people have rumination or ADHD and they have like a million things bouncing around in their mind, they might not necessarily be tracking like, now we're going down a mountain, now we're going here, now we're going there. But the essence of what's happening is still impacting you regardless of tracking every little detail.
Yes.
What other sort of tips, how else do you sort of make that process your own?
I really love the work of Joe Dispenza as well. Lacey's had him on a few times. And a lot of stuff he says is about intention and feeling. So before I do a DI, you do kind of like the pre-journal, and I'll just say out loud to my brain, because I really believe in confirmation bias. And so I'll say, hey, my intention, and I'm just talking out loud too, saying my intention is to heal blank. Please help me or show me whatever I need to see or whatever. And then after I get out of it, the universe makes it, or my body, whoever, will give me a physical reaction. Like I'll get a headache or I'll feel fuzzy. So it makes it feel like I did some work.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the intention. And then afterwards, I'll do the journalings of what I saw or what I felt. If I'm doing something because I think it's going to help me manifest something that I'm calling in, I'll say out loud or write down how that thing will make me feel.
I love that. That's something whenever I craft my list, I'll write out expanders I think I already might have in the space. And then I'll also write out, what does this bring me? Oh, this touches on this aspect of my authentic code, and it brings me safety, security, a feeling of peace, et cetera, et cetera. So that way, the times when, especially when you're afraid to take action towards a manifestation, you're like, oh, I don't know. And your brain is kind of moving to that new neural pathway or that new way of being. You can look back at that and be like, no, this is how I want to feel. Like, this feels aligned. Okay, I can do this.
Yes, exactly. And you have to calculate, regardless of whether or not you take action. For people who don't have challenges with school, but they're like, oh my God, that's going to take 4 years. Guess what? 4 years is going to go by anyways. Or they're saying, I don't want to do this because it's going to make me feel uncomfortable. When you're saying that, I'm brave because I do things, but really it's the discomfort of being in a bad situation that is greater than the discomfort of doing something new for me.
100%. Such a good point. So, how did your manifestations come through? I mean, just looking at your list too of things that have come through, purchasing a new home by yourself, which is in process, but different partnerships, aligned employments, several physical moves, won 3K of gold jewelry on your 30th birthday, free iPhone, free Apple Watch, numerous secondhand treasures. And honestly, it's sounding like such a deep sense of self-worth and resilience in the process too.
Yes, I think because really what's important to me, like, and it all ties in so well with my Cancer son, family and having a comfy home are like all that I care about, and good friends. So it's been very delayed gratification in those things. Obviously, buying a home is a big thing nowadays because with inflation and all the things going on in the world, and we might be, going into another recession, hopefully not, but it's something that you have to build up your nervous system and your trust muscle and all the things, because I'm coming from a place that was so low that it's taken me a long time, and I have to be okay with that and just trusting the process. And just partnership, same thing. I just keep trying and trying and going, and those are the two big things that I really want, but I am so sure that I am going to get what I want that I am willing to wait. And those little things that we're talking about, like winning $3,000 worth of solid gold jewelry, I'm terribly allergic to most metals like copper and brass and stuff. So I was just saying, oh my gosh, I would so wish if I could wear jewelry, but I just don't feel like I could afford it. And that's the way that the universe will send me a little like, girl, you got this. Like when I got my free Apple Watch, it was because I went to the psychiatrist. They contacted me right after and was like, hey, Apple is doing a study on depressed people. We'll send you Apple Watch if you're willing to answer questions for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that happens to me all the time. So if you just take your aligned action and not force stuff, cool stuff will come.
I think those are also such cool reminders of like, oh, wait, I did this in alignment with my highest self and my needs. And then you see a reward from it too.
Exactly. And I want to know some cool stuff that's happened this week.
Yes.
This week has been so magical. It has been amazing. So when we talked on the pre-screen on August 5th, we had talked about how we were missing meeting people and hanging out in real life and stuff. And you said that TBM had gave away some journals. And I was like, what the heck? Why did I miss this? Because I have notifications sent on. And so I went to my stories and saw what you were talking about. And I was like, dang, I wish I could have hung out with them in real life. But then right after that, the next story was one of my biggest style expanders. So I'm obsessed with old Hollywood and burlesque. Dita Von Teese is my queen. But one of her friends, her handle is Miss Miranda. Her story was saying that she was selling some stuff on Depop. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would so love to have something that she owned and feel so luxurious. And that's a big shadow that I have, is buying expensive things like that is scary to me.
Yeah.
And so there was a pair of Christian Louboutins that she was selling. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would do anything to have those. And then I got a ping from the universe, get it. And it's also scary because I don't have a job. But I was like, you know what? I deserve to feel luxurious and have a nice pair of fantastic shoes. And I don't even think I've worn high heels in like the last 5 years, but I am worth this and I'm going to get them. I'm sure a bunch of people tried to get them and it ended up being me. And so I'm so excited.
Wow.
And you know what else? There was a couple sets of lingerie that were my exact size. And isn't it weird that she wears the exact size as me, and the lingerie too? And the lingerie was gifted to her by Dita herself. So I feel like I am secondhand having all the people I idolize. And then on top of that, so I ordered a Dyson blow dryer. I get cool little things that are less expensive than they actually were. I just happened to see an ad that they were selling some refurbished ones, because I was like, there's no way I'm paying $600 for a blow dryer. But I ended up getting one, and they had just released a bunch of new attachments. And so I was like, okay, I want to get a couple of the attachments I think would make it easier to blow dry my hair. I ordered 2 of them, and one of them was out of stock. So I was like, okay, that's totally fine. I'll get the one that I really want, and then later the other one will come. And they messed up somehow. I got the first attachment. The second one they canceled, but I didn't have to pay for either of them.
Wow.
I know. And then again, burlesque being like my favorite thing. LA right now has Moulin Rouge on Broadway, and I've really been wanting to go. And then I was looking at their website and noticed that they have lottery tickets. I think the less expensive seats start at like $40, $50, which, is okay. But the good seats are like $100, $120. So I was like, well, I'll just get this lottery just to see what happens. Guess who won the lottery, girl? It was me.
No way!
Yes,
Oh
and
my
that's just this week. And then the last thing that happened was...
Oh, what a powerful week. Jeez.
I bleached my hair blonde. I have naturally dark brown hair. And so Olaplex is like a lifesaver for me. And I had ordered some back in July. I just got a notification this morning, your Olaplex order is coming. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So I went and checked my credit card to make sure I didn't get charged. And then I called Olaplex and was like, I don't understand what's happening. But they're sending me free stuff. So I don't know. And I'm just excited about it.
That's amazing.
I know.
Ooh, I'm sensing a trend with theater and burlesque, luxurious style and fashion. It's like, I don't know, asking you to be more expressive, maybe, kind of like step out in your shell, be seen more.
I think that's what it is too, because right now I don't have social media, because putting myself on the internet for people to reject and ridicule sounds like the worst thing in the entire world to me. But I think, like we've talked about, I've been through so much, and listening to, you guys and everybody on To Be Magnetic for the last 5 years has gotten me through so much. And there are so many other creators who have gotten me through like the hard times, expanders and stuff. And so maybe I do need to go on and be an expander. If I just help one person, like, it'll be so worth it. I can't hide myself because I'm afraid somebody's going to say something mean about me.
100%. And then you can face it.
Yeah.
That's definitely one thing that I've continued to work through, is like different layers of, can I be seen even if someone doesn't like me? Can I be seen if someone leaves a mean comment? Like, what if someone doesn't like this about me? All the things I'm worried about happening, my own inner critic and my own shadow is the thing that's really what I'm scared about. I'm scared about facing me thinking it's true about myself. But if I can bolster my own internal self-worth and be like, whatever they say, it doesn't matter, or I don't believe it, or maybe they are right about this and I'm not offended, or you know what I mean? Like I can take it as self-reflective moment. It's really bolstering that inner shadow, that inner critic. These outside people don't have power on me,
Yes.
like it's my relationship with me that matters.
And my intention is only to help. It's not an ego thing.
Right. It's not like I'm better than blah, blah. It's like, no, I just have a really grounded, fierce sense of self-worth for me. That's the strength to face difficult situations or any situation where you may need to tap into like your resilience or anything like that.
Yes, 100%.
I think you should set up an Instagram before the episode goes live so everyone can message you how much they loved your episode.
Oh, that's so sweet. I will. And I'll send you my handle and a picture because I never take any.
That's one of the coolest things with these process episodes too, is everyone's nervous to record because it is so vulnerable and it's like sharing so many things. And then once it goes live and it reaches the people, that is my intention every time before I record. I'm like, let whatever is said reach the people who need to hear it the most. I'm going to drop any perfectionism around it. The people who need to hear it will hear it in the way that makes sense for them. I don't want to put my ego at play of trying to perfect it. And what winds up happening is that also correlates with the process episodes where people hear exactly the expansion they need from your story. And then they'll get messages of like, oh my gosh, this, or you're my expander now for this, or I went through that. And I just love this community because it's so beautiful to see everyone being able to uplift and support and expand each other through all of this stuff, because being a human is not the easiest thing in the world.
Yes, and I just want to affirm you. You are so good at your job. I love listening to you. It makes me feel, I look forward to Fridays because I get to listen to this podcast. And yes, I hope that we all get to be a better community and support each other. And if anybody is in LA, I would love to make new friends. I don't really know anybody yet.
Oh my gosh, yes. There's so many magnetic meetup groups. I was just telling this during the journal handout we had the other week. Someone had one in Griffith Park last week. They have one in Topanga, which I think is closer out by you. There's ones all over. So we'll also link actually in the show notes in the community group where you can find where magnetic meetups are in your area, because you guys are everywhere and I want you all to meet and know each other.
Nothing would be better. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So last tips, takeaways for anyone out there who's navigating difficult situations, who's navigating moving through these blocks, and maybe even for someone who, I have it. For the version of you before you started the work, who was feeling so lost in their relationship and career and just facing health issues, how can you vision hold for them of a different future?
I would say my number one tip is what I said in the beginning: fall into accepting delayed gratification. It's going to feel like you take 2 steps forward and 85 steps back. But every day, try to do something, and they don't even have to be correlated. If you're feeling just so awful that you can't do the dishes, just do that one day. And then the next day, do something else. Just try to get 1% better at something every day. And 5 years later, it might be 2 days later. You don't know, but it's all going to come together and your life is going to work out. And I love you and I'm rooting for you.
One more thing. Sorry, I know I said I was the last question, but I'm thinking too, because you did wind up leaving that relationship, you were engaged, right, in Texas. For people who are like, I feel like this is not the right relationship for me, I need to get out. What are some tips for those people too?
If you are staying in a relationship, and of course there's always severe situations, like if you are experiencing abuse, I am so sorry, and I really hope that you can get the help you need. That's a scarier situation, but just in like regular everyday situations, you just have to trust yourself and say, I am worth stepping out of this. And you are also doing a disservice to the other person by staying in a relationship, because they're probably not happy either. And there's somebody out there for both of you. And so better your relationship with yourself. And while you're doing the things that you are falling in love with, you'll find a person to fall in love with.
Oh, so well said. Oh my gosh. Listen to all these mic drops at the end of the episode. It's so good. Thank you so much, Brianca. This was so much fun. I love talking with you and so excited to see you continue to grow and prosper and have everything and all of your desires come true.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. And I love hearing your little tidbits at the beginning of the episodes. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Wow, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. I am so excited for Brianca and so inspired that since recording the episode, she has since launched her Instagram, allowing herself to be seen, stepping through that fear and taking that aligned action. And now you guys can connect with her via Instagram. So exciting. So I wanted to share a little mini manifestation story and also expand upon a tip that I started giving in the episode around understanding the core essence of the things that I'm calling in, and honestly, really just expanding upon Heather's tip as well about getting to the root essence of what we mean when we're calling things in. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I manifested my dream office chair. I have it in my highlights under manifestations. You can see like the mood board and how similar it was. It's kind of crazy how it was so spot on. But one of the things that I write down when I'm writing down my manifestation is what it brings me. And it really roots down to, okay, what part of my authentic code is it touching? But what does it bring me? Like, what do I get once I have this thing? What am I trying to feel? What is the root essence? So for me with this chair, it was part of a bigger sort of manifestation, which is like up-leveling my office space and my working from home space. And so I wrote down, it helps create a calm space to work, feel professional, up-leveled, a serious workspace, a grounded space to recharge while working, but I'm also super lit up to work in. There's a certain feeling and imagery that really sits behind those words for me. And so creating that space in my home was very important. And I started finding expanders of people who have made, their little dream office space, even if it's not in their dream house one day, even if it's in their apartment, their version of it now. How can they be reflective of it now instead of waiting for like the next space or the next thing? And I feel like there was a bit of me still trying to do that, holding off on getting really quality investment pieces because I wanted to wait till I was in, my next home when I could be enjoying that space and those items now that bring me joy and knowing I'm worth having them now. So a couple weeks before this manifestation came through, it was Amazon Prime Day, and I had a couple of chairs in one of my lists there, and they were pretty close to what I wanted, but not 100%, but they were heavily discounted because of the Prime sale. So I was like, oh, should I just get it? I really want a new chair. It's been a while. I mean, I haven't seen other ones out there that really feel comparable. I don't even know where to find the exact version of the chair that I want because I saw it in some random picture. Should I just get this? And then I looked back at my notebook and saw what I wanted it for. All of the feelings, feeling up-leveled, feeling professional, having this high-quality piece that gives me something that I'm lit up by when I see it. Pure joy. And I know it sounds silly to be lit up by a physical item, but I am because I love interior design stuff. And so I was like, no, it's a test. I'm not supposed to buy it. I'm not supposed to settle for something that's not 100% the quality and level of a piece that I want. And within a few weeks, we were at the Journal Magnetic Meetup, and Grace, who you've heard on the podcast, is in the middle of moving and detoxing and delegating some of the stuff that doesn't fit or work in her new space. And this chair was one of them. I almost like my jaw dropped to the floor when I saw it, because when I tell you it was to the T, the exact quality, materials, color, frame, everything that I wanted, I was just like, how is this possible. And she's like, yeah, I'm getting rid of it. Do you want it? Huge manifestation. It was so much so that she was like, do you want to sit in it and see if like it feels comfortable? I'm like, nope, I know it's mine. I know 100% is mine. Like I have been calling this. This is so wild. And so I share this because you don't need to settle for that thing just because you feel like you need it right now. Allow time to bring you something even more aligned and trust that you can call that in. That was another theme from Brianca's story, is how much trust she has in knowing, okay, I don't have a job now, but I know I don't need to be in fear and scarcity this whole time before my aligned career comes in. And I think that's a really good reminder for all of you. So next time you're writing your list, or maybe even do a little exercise with your existing list, maybe write down what that brings you so that way when you're tested in it, you know it is not worth settling for and you deserve everything you desire. We will see you next week, and happy manifesting.